This is El Chapucero, and he has a very excellent program. I really like to watch his videos because he really gets down to the nitty gritty. And some people don't like his style, but I really like it. Anyway, the thing with him is, let me make this a little bit bigger. Well, I'm going to end it there. Just let it go to there. Okay, got to move this one. All right. So anyway, I wanted you to see his channel, El Chapucero, if you want to join. Um, I guess he's got a link right there. Let me see. Oh, and he sells some caps and some shirts that say "Me canso ganso," which is a slogan that AMLO uses all the time. If I'm dying, if I'm lying, I'm dying, kind of thing, you know. But it means it just doesn't translate as well. It says "me canso," which means um, if I get tired, and then ganso is a goose, but in English it rhyme. I'm sorry, it doesn't rhyme. And then but it kind of means like if I'm lying, I'm dying, or if I said so, it's going to happen, or something like that. Uh, so it's kind of cute. But anyway, he sells those. He's got his business, and you can look up his channel. And maybe I should let me get his. I'm going to go ahead and see if I could find his video. Here it is. Copy. I'm going to copy his link, and I'm going to add it to the credits for the video when it comes time to do so. So let me just get to. Uh, so this is I use. This is just so you guys know. I use this uh, Google Docs in order to do my data collection. And then I'm going to just put his name there. And that's Mr. Oh, Chapucero. Chapucero's video. I'm not even grammatically correcting it or whatever. But anyway, so I'm going to get back to this one. Okay, so I want to make sure I add that later, and I don't want to lose it. Okay, so this here he's talking about um, how, and he was the first one that I heard mention that the DEA had been involved in the situation with Sinaloa, that it was all a DEA fiasco. Um, and they kind of did it behind the back of the president, which really made him angry, apparently. So anyway, I'm going to let him explain it, and he's going to explain it in Spanish. I'll explain it in English. I'll translate for him. But on that bottom part, it says, AMLO expulsa al DEA por el fiasco de Culiacan, which is what I translated above. And then it says the United States gets mad, and they sent someone to threaten him. Okay, so let's go ahead and play it, and I'll translate.
Ante el fiasco que resultó Culiacán, que fue un operativo planeado y ejecutado por...
So after the fiasco that happened in Culiacan, which was an operation that was planned and executed by
La DEA,
the DEA.
Agencia Estadounidense Anti
This is a United States agency
Drogas,
that is against drugs.
el presidente tomó la decisión
The president made the decision, or took the decision,
de expulsar a la DEA,
to expel the DEA,
de cortar bastante la relación,
and to cut very much or severely the relations with them,
de cooperación de
and to cut the relations of cooperation with them,
seguridad con Estados Unidos,
and security with the United States,
limitar también la acción de la CIA y de la embajada,
and also to limit the actions of the CIA and
de Estados Unidos,
the embassy of the U.S.,
lo que ha llevado
which now has caused or brought forth.
ahora a los estadounidenses a amenazar al presidente López.
So this caused the U.S. to threaten the Mexican president, AMLO,
porque el día de ayer incluso la Secretaría de Estado le
So because even today the Secretary of State
reprocha al presidente Obrador de
reproached the Mexican President Obrador
que no lo incluya en el nuevo plan anticrimen contra
for not including him in the new anti-crime plan that they have
el crimen organizado.
for organized crime.
Diría habrá un
So Abrat would say
antes y un después
there was a time that existed before and a time that exists now
en Culiacán. Y ese es
in Culiacan.
sí. Un antes
And that's the case.
cuando la DEA todavía tenía
There was a time, the before was when the DEA was still in charge,
alguna injerencia y tuvo
which it still had some strength in there or power, or that they were able to somehow put their 2 cents in there.
injerencia en gran medida en México
But actually not 2 cents, it was in great measure, he says.
y un después cuando
And then afterwards that,
los expulsan
since they were expelled
y los limitan y
and they limit them,
ahora, y dice Obrador mucho,
and now Obrador said very much,
ya se respeta la soberanía.
now they're respecting our sovereignty, or the sovereignty.
Y hoy incluso el presidente habló
And so, including today, the president said,
duro
and he spoke hardly, in very harsh tone,
contra los funcionarios norteamericanos.
against the officials in the North American area.
Quédese con este video, vamos a ver cómo se está dando este rompimiento. Y
So here we're seeing how this parting of ways is being done,
esta expulsión de una u otra
and how this expulsion is happening one way or
manera de
in a different way
la DEA y de otras agencias estatales.
from the DEA and other American state agencies
De nuestro país.
or that were involved with our country.
Y es que hoy, el día de hoy a mí me sorprende.
Because today, I was very surprised.
Nosotros hemos venido comentándoles desde
And we have been commenting on this for quite some time,
el pasado viernes,
since last Friday,
de dónde surgió el tema de Sinaloa.
of where the matter that happened in Sinaloa. And by the way, he did make a video, I think it was on Friday, discussing that it was the DEA involvement that had caused the problems in Sinaloa.
Yo se los comenté.
And he says, I commented on it.
La DEA, la DEA, la DEA.
And I kept saying, it's the DEA, it's the DEA.
Ha sido la gran responsable. Yo,
And I said they were the responsible parties, the great responsible parties.
hoy,
And all of a sudden today, it's like, whoa.
Reforma,
And now Reforma, which is like our Inquirer in Mexico.
el Universal,
The Universal, another one that's kind of like a Inquirer.
MBS, empiezan a descubrir
All of a sudden they discover
la participación
the participation
secreta de
that was secret.
la DEA. No manches.
And he's like, come on now.
Eso es bastante conocido en las redes
It's very well known, even in the World Wide Web.
sociales. Pero lo interesante, sin embargo, y debemos
But the interesting part, even though, is,
recordar qué participación fue.
and that we must recall what was the participation.
Vamos a algunas notas que
So let's go to some notes here. That and I'm probably I'm gonna read it first, because then when he reads it, he's gonna remove it. So he says in the Democratic group, they have been circulating the thesis that the operation for the capture of the son of Chapo failed because of information that was given to the armed forces to the armed forces was incorrect. That information came to say that it was a reaccommodation of power, internal power in the cartel in Sinaloa, and that due to that there was going to be movement of Ovidio, and it was that it was going to be an easy grasp. That error, explained the Democrats, is what caused or sustained what the concierge and Donald Trump of Donald Trump said to the government, the Mexican government, this weekend. The president would have responded furiously, but rapidly recognized the role of the agency in the U.S., and he preferred to send signals of friendship and his a typical promise of and they gave the typical promising of ending or helping to slow down the influx of arms to Mexico.
Que ha circulado desde hace rato, pero incluso en la política online. La DEA participó, según el sitio, en la inteligencia. Dice, en la bancada demócrata de Estados Unidos circula la tesis de que el operativo para la captura del hijo falló porque la información entregada de la DEA a las Fuerzas Armadas Mexicanas fue incorrecta. Esa información vendría a decir que había un reacomodo de poder interno en el cártel de Sinaloa y que tras ese movimiento Ovidio era un blanco fácil. O sea, la DEA participó de entrada en la recolección de información e inteligencia y se la proporcionó al gobierno mexicano. Pero no solo eso, también ha empezado a trascender de que incluso no estuvo informado el gobierno mexicano.
Not only that, but the Mexican government was not informed.
Ni siquiera el estatal de Quirino
Not even the state.
Díaz, lo cual no se...
Which he finds hard to believe.
Ya, se me era medio extraño, pero...
It seems a bit strange, but...
Bueno, sobre el operativo.
So regarding the operation...
Esta parte de esta nota. Hasta ahora no es claro el papel que pudo haber tomado la agencia estadounidense, la DEA.
So it says there that up to now it's not clear what the United States agency could have, the role they could have played
para el control de drogas.
In the control of drugs.
Pero la especulación en torno a esta reunión, o sea, la de Quirino con la DEA, daba más fuerza a la tesis de la intervención de la DEA en dicho operativo.
But what they actually saw was that it was more of an intervention operation.
Del cual no estaba enterado ni el gobierno federal ni el estatal, según declaran ambas partes.
Of which neither the government nor the state of Mexico was informed.
En otras palabras, la DEA.
So in other words, the DEA
planeó y
planned and executed
el operativo
the operation
contra la detención de los hijos
in order to detain the sons.
Y no le informó ni a Obrador.
And did not inform Obrador.
Y él lo ha confirmado por
And he confirmed that as a certainty.
Cierto, y también dicen que no le informó a Quirino. ¿Sí?
And he also did not inform Quirino, which is the state governor.
Medio extraño, pero bueno.
Which seems a bit strange to him. See, he says, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
Vamos a dar la versión que no le informó a Quirino.
So let's give the version that he did not inform Quirino, because a lot of people think that Quirino was involved.
Al gobernador de Sinaloa. Eso significa que
so he says the governor of Sinaloa, which means that
la DEA llegó a México.
So this means that the DEA came to Mexico
y como si operara en México,
as if though they operated in Mexico,
organizó todo esto,
organized this whole thing,
que acabó en un fiasco.
This whole operation that ended in a fiasco, failure.
Y después de que generó el
and then after they generated this problema,
ya entró López Obrador.
And then López Obrador went in.
Entró el ejército
and then the military went in.
La Secretaría de Seguridad Pública.
And then the Security of Public Safety went in.
Durazo.
And Durazo went in.
A componer, y la única forma
in order to repair the damage.
Componerlo.
And the only way to repair the damage
fue liberando.
Was to liberate him.
Finalmente, al hijo.
To liberate the son, finally.
Del capo.
The son of El Chapo.
Esto creo que ya está quedando más que claro. Pero,
and this, I believe, is becoming more than clear now.
Aún así.
But even so.
¿Qué pasó? Bueno,
what happened?
Después de este fiasco.
Well, then, after this fiasco,
que vemos que organizó la DEA en México,
that we can see that the DEA formed in Mexico,
sin enterar al presidente.
without letting the president know.
El propio presidente Obrador señala que
The president himself signaled
recibió una llamada de Trump.
that he received a call from Trump. So here he says, and I'm going to read it to you in English. I received a call from President Trump expressing his solidarity for the things that happened in Culiacan. And I appreciate the respect for our sovereignty and his goodwill towards maintaining politics of a good neighbor and sustaining the cooperation for the development and well-being of our people.
En su tweet, recibí llamada del presidente Trump expresando su solidaridad por los hechos de Culiacán. ¿No? O sea, después de que ya estaba, ¿no?, ahogado el niño.
So after they had already, and they say ahogado el niño, which means drowned the baby.
Intentó Trump tapar el pozo.
Then Trump attempted to cover up that water hole.
Le agradezco el respeto a nuestra soberanía y su voluntad para mantener una política de buena vecindad. Esta palabra soberanía, el presidente de la mañana la ha repetido una.
So this word, sovereignty, the president has repeated many, many times.
Y otra vez.
And again and again.
Porque
so this is important.
Esta palabra radica lo siguiente.
Because this word indicates this thing.
Radica la expulsión de agentes estadounidenses de México.
Which indicates the expulsion of U.S. Agencies.
Por eso insiste una y otra vez el respeto a nuestra soberanía.
And that's why he insists on our sovereignty and respect.
Abraham lo puso más claro.
So Abrad, the concierge, the foreign relations guy, he put it a little more clear. He wrote, the meeting concluded that was requested by the Secretary of Security, Alfonso Durazo, with the ambassador of the United States and his team to stop or freeze trafficking illicit arms to Mexico. And before and after the call on Saturday, before the presidents Andrés Manuel López Obrador regarding this matter.
Él también la propia llamada señaló, habrá un antes y un después de la llamada del sábado entre los presidentes Obrador y Trump en esta materia. Hablan de armas, pero también habla claro de la cooperación y la participación.
So they're talking about a time before and after the call, but he says there's going to be a discussion about the cooperation and the arms
de la DEA y las
between the DEA,
CIA y la Embajada de Estados
the CIA and Embassy,
Unidos en asuntos mexicanos.
getting involved in Mexican matters.
Esto enfurece obviamente a Estados Unidos.
And this infuriated the United States.
Obviamente, los gringos
Obviously, the gringos, which are the American people,
muy, le daban la puerta abierta al gobierno de Peña, de Calderón.
because in the past they had an open door policy from the government of Peña Nieto, Calderón and Fox,
que aquí hicieran lo que quieran de México.
and they were allowed to do whatever they wanted in Mexico.
México, Obrador les cierra la puerta.
And Obrador closes that door.
Y enfurece, no se esperaban esto.
And they were not expecting this. Oh, okay, so he found something else. Okay, so it says the Department of the United States urged Mexico to present an anti-crime strategy by Richard Glenn, Subsecretary of the United States for Narcotic International. The application of the law from the United States advised that they didn't know which was the strategy that the administration of Andrés Manuel López Obrador was looking to implement in this area. At these times, it is of major importance that Mexico develop and share with us what their strategy is to confront crime, organized crime.
Entonces, el día de ayer, la Secretaría de Estado de Estados Unidos, en particular el alto funcionario Richard Glenn, subsecretario de Estado.
So this was the Subsecretary Glenn from the United States.
Adjunto para narcóticos internacionales, señaló que no conocen cuál es la estrategia de Obrador en la materia del narco.
So they signaled that they didn't know what the strategy was of Obrador, anti-narcotics.
En este momento dice lo que es de mayor importancia es que México desarrolle y comparta con nosotros una estrategia integral.
So they're, demanding that Mexico share with them an integral plan for anti-narcotic trafficking.
Para confrontar el crimen.
So that they can confront crime.
Porque están hablando de la iniciativa Mérida junto con congresistas porque están viendo precisamente el presupuesto, los congresistas.
So they're claiming something about Merida, which is something I'm going to research. I'm not really familiar with that Merida plan, but apparently it's something that the U.S. has been giving money to Mexico, and I think it's supposed to be to fight drugs and crime.
Los Estados Unidos están aprobando el presupuesto y da una serie de cosas, pero en particular esto, que les exige a México que ellos participen en la estrategia anticrimen nacional.
So they're demanding from Mexico that they get to participate in the anti-crime war.
Vamos a escuchar de todos modos este momento, porque también aquí lo tengo.
So let's listen to this here, because I have this moment here on this video.
Es el momento en donde el presidente, el chairman, Mr. Sayers, ¿no? Que es
So the chairman, Mr. Sayers,
el comité o subcomité de asuntos exteriores,
is the subcommittee of foreign relations.
le empieza a hablar y reflexionar sobre la iniciativa Mérida.
So he starts to reflect over the Merida thing.
Dice que ha fracasado, o sea, han gastado
They said, yes, it's a failure. They've spent a lot of money.
$2,000 millones.
$2,000 million.
Y lo cierto es que México no ha pasado nada, tiene toda
And that nothing's happened in Mexico.
la razón. Y en ese momento, en la respuesta de el funcionario secretario de Estado,
And then here's the response from the other official.
precisamente dice esto, que, bueno, es que México, pues, las autoridades mexicanas no comparten con esa información, no
So they're saying that Mexico doesn't share the information with them.
los quieren meter, no quieren tampoco decirle cuál es la estrategia mexicana. Vamos a escuchar.
And they don't want to tell us what the strategy is in Mexico.
I want to talk a little bit about something that's very bothersome to me.
Yo quiero hablar un poquito sobre algo que me molesta bastante.
I remember the Merida Initiative.
Well, it's on there. I remember, oh my God, I'm translating the English. I'm so silly. The Spanish is there.
I guess this will go to you. Mr.
I'm
Vice.
crazy.
We have invested close to $2 billion in Mexico on the Merida Initiative. And the homicide rate in August was the highest on record. Is it worth it to continue to invest money in Mexico? I mean, the other day, I saw that the Sinaloa took over a town of 1 million people. And Mexico basically walked away. That's very disturbing to me.
Yeah,
Someone
get the
who
DEA
supported
out of there.
the Merida Initiative right from the beginning. Where are we with this Merida Initiative?
Es importante hablar, le voy a dar pausa a la iniciativa Mérida porque de aquí desprende toda la estrategia y la guerra contra el narco.
So it's very important to understand the Merida Initiative, because this is where the whole situation happens with narcotics trafficking.
De la iniciativa Mérida.
It's related to the initiative, Merida initiative.
Y le está diciendo, tiene toda la razón. Oye, toda esta
And he's saying, and he has all the reason.
lana, ¿dónde hay? No ha
So all this money that we're sending, what's going on with it?
pasado nada.
And nothing's happened.
Y vemos cómo defiende el Departamento de Estado, final,
And we can see how the state is defending that,
frente la guerra contra el narco,
uh, specifically the war against narcotics.
¿no? Para ellos es un gran negocio.
Because for them it's a great big business.
Y en ese momento habla sobre el gobierno mexicano.
And then at that moment he speaks about the Mexican government.
First, if I may, I want to recognize and thank the many members of Mexican law enforcement and military who wear the uniform and who are patriots to their nation and who are dedicated to the fight against transnational organized crime. They are there. Many of them are personal friends of mine and are respected colleagues and associates. They are passionate about the work that they do. They believe in upholding the rule of law. And one of the things that we have been able to do through the Merit Initiative is to equip and build their capacity to be able to confront organized crime. We know that they're capable. We know because we helped build that capacity.
Oh, sure.
As I mentioned in my testimony, I think what is of greatest importance at this moment is that Mexico develop and share with us a comprehensive strategy to confront transnational organized crime. Without that strategy, and without us knowing what that strategy is and being able to match our funding and our abilities with their strategic direction, we won't see progress. But obviously, the events of last week were very concerning to us.
Well, it's been 10 years that we've been giving money to this initiative, and we still don't have a plan to deal with international. Is that what you're telling me?
I think what we need to see is a greater political commitment from the highest levels of government in Mexico.
Ahí termina. Entonces, habla el funcionario del Departamento de Estado, hablando claro,
So then the official from the state speaks and says,
por la DEA, por la CIA, de que este gobierno no les ya permite, ¿no?
so he's from the DEA, from the CIA, and he's saying now this government doesn't permit us now
¿no? Que participen en la estrategia anticrimen.
to participate in the anti-crime strategy.
Ni siquiera en el diseño, porque ellos quieren
Not even in the design,
también seguir financiando,
because they want to continue financing it.
quieren seguir con la guerra contra el narco,
And they want to continue with a war against drugs.
que los tienen cortados y que esperan
That they've been cut off and that they're waiting.
y presionan a un mayor compromiso de López
And they're pressuring Andrés Manuel for a more commitment.
Obrador. ¿No? Y interesante también señala en otra parte del
And another interesting part of this video that's signaled out or stands out,
testimonio, me pone aquí Reforma, que
that a testimony that is put there by Reforma,
el 3 de octubre pasado, aquí está,
that the 3rd of October that just passed,
viajaron funcionarios del Departamento de Estado, el Pentágono y la Administración de la DEA
so that the Pentagon and the DEA had traveled on the 3rd of October to the Mexican government to
y pidieron el 3 de octubre para que compartiera con ellos la estrategia anticrimen.
so that they could share with them the anti-crime strategy.
Y no se les proporcionaron, obviamente
And they didn't give it to them, obviously,
está el testimonio ahí.
according to that testimony.
Pero de todos modos, ¿no? O sea, se ve que,
But in any case, you can see that,
o sea, están enojados.
that they're bothered
Enojados porque Obrador los ha cortado. Y
because Obrador has cut them off.
claro, después de lo de Sinaloa, del
Of course, after what happened in Sinaloa,
fiasco de Culiacán,
with
pues
the
es lo
fiasco
menos. Hoy
in Culiacan, it's even less.
el presidente le respondió y dijo, ¿saben
And so the president responded today and he said, you know,
que no deben meterse los funcionarios americanos
the officials in the U.S. should not be getting involved
En asuntos mexicanos,
in matters of Mexico.
que dice de mal gusto incluso.
He says it's in bad taste.
Pero con respecto a la soberanía
But in respect to sovereignty
de cada país,
of every country,
no deben funcionarios de otros países
so officials from other countries should not
opinar
give their opinion
sobre asuntos internos
regarding internal matters
que solo corresponden
that only correspond or belong
a nuestro gobierno.
to our government.
Es hasta de mal gusto hacerlo.
It's even in bad taste to do so.
Imagínense que yo declare
Imagine if I were to declare
de que está mal la estrategia que siguen en Estados Unidos
that the strategy that they follow in the U.S. is bad
porque permiten
because they permit,
sin control,
without control,
la venta de armas
the sale of arms
que se introducen a México
that are introduced into Mexico
para causar la muerte
in order to cause the death
de civiles.
of civilians.
Un rompimiento, ¿eh? O sea, no parece, pero sí lo es.
He says a break or coming apart. He goes, it's not so clear, but it is.
¿Qué ha pasado? Bueno, la DEA informó.
So what has happened? Well, the DEA informed.
En el hecho que los
They informed López Obrador
cruzaron y los han cortado.
that they've been cut off and they've been expulsed. So here it says the ex-chief of the DEA, AMLO, said AMLO has made a pact with the devil, and now the the narcotics traffickers are in charge.
El jefe de la DEA, ¿no? Jack Riley señala, AMLO acaba de hacer un pacto con el diablo. Ahora mandan los narcos ante el hecho de que, bueno, por el... No,
Because they were upset that AMLO let the son of Chapo go, when in fact, if he hadn't, there would have been a lot of Mexican bloodshed. For what? For a feather in the American cap?
creo que no está hablando solo por el que hayan dejado libre,
But he doesn't think that he's talking only about that they let him go free.
o que el hijo del capo, sí,
So the son of Chapo. And the reason they say Capo is because apparently there's some kind of a problem with there's this agency that prevents them from saying certain words on the internet. And and Chapo is one of them.
sino porque a ellos los están imitando.
Because they are now being limited.
Vaya, otro funcionario, Mike Vigil, el ex encargado de la DEA,
So another functioning official that used to be in charge of the DEA said the following. He said the government of Mexico doesn't say the truth about the arrest of Ovidio Guzman. Was what he said. And this is Mike Vigil.
el gobierno mexicano no dice la verdad sobre el arresto de Ovidio Guzmán, señala. O sea, se están metiendo más y más, como damos
So they're getting more and more involved in the matters,
dando cuenta.
as you can, we're finding out.
Y han amenazado al presidente, que esto es lo
And they have threatened the president, which is.
lo han amenazado. ¿Sabes qué?
So you know what they have said? How they have threatened the president?
Dicho a López Obrador, Cometiste un delito.
They said you did a crime
Porque agarraste a un criminal y
because you captured a criminal
pues ordenaste que lo dejara libre. Eso.
and then you allowed him to go free,
No, eso es un delito.
and that is a crime.
Se lo han dicho con voceros del panismo y
And they said it via the voice boxes of the PAN group
también seguramente amenazas de Estados Unidos.
and also threats from the United States.
¿Y qué respondió Obrador?
And what did Obrador respond to that?
Ah, ok. Bueno, denúncienme.
He says, so then turn me, complain about me.
En tribunales nacionales
So say it in an international tribunal
y internacionales.
and international, national and international.
Y yo voy a comparecer.
And I will compare notes.
No se ha echado para atrás.
I am not backing down.
Lo han amenazado y Obrador dice, bueno,
And so they threatened AMLO, and he said, oh, okay, well,
órale va.
here it goes.
Si me vas a acusar por ser delincuente, por dejar
If you're going to accuse me about being delinquent by letting him go,
libre a un presunto criminal,
a presumed criminal,
yo voy a defender
I am going to defend myself.
y voy a exponer
And I will expose
lo que no ha dicho, que la
what I haven't said,
DEA está participando
that the DEA was participating
directamente en México sin
directly in Mexico
autorización
without authorization
del presidente mexicano.
of the Mexican president.
¿Y qué es peor, finalmente? ¿Qué
And what is worse, finally?
es más delictuoso?
What is more of a crime?
Una u otra.
One or the other?
Entonces, ahí se ha hecho un poco para atrás,
And so there they kind of backed off a little.
pero sí vemos un rompimiento,
But we do see a coming apart.
vemos un límite, por
We see that he is now limiting,
primera vez desde mucho tiempo,
for the first time in a very long time,
la limitación de la actuación de la DEA
the limitation of the actions of the DEA.
y, claro, también de la CIA y también
And also, of course, of the CIA,
del embajador de Estados Unidos.
and also the embassy of the U.S.
Pero, de todos modos, ¿no?
But in any case,
No, debe de reconocerse que se le está poniendo duro, está
but they need to recognize that it's getting harder,
el presidente Obrador
that the President Obrador
al propio Estados Unidos.
is becoming hardened against the U.S.
Bueno, amigos y amigas, eso es todo por el día.
So he says that's all for today. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you because there's a lot of questions about what's happening in Mexico. And just so you know, I mean, we all know that the DEA gets involved in stuff. But in Mexico, they believe that the DEA has a lot to do with the crime that's happening in Mexico. And so they want him out. And so they need to get out. Okay? Anyway, talk to you later. Bye. Oh, hugs and kisses. Like and subscribe. And if you want to see them in English, you got to go to the English AMLO Vision link that you'll see at the bottom where the description is. Okay? Just pick the links that you want. And I'll add the link to this video too in case you're curious as to where this came from. Okay? Thanks a lot. Oh, and I'm also going to include the link for the one that he went to for the American people at the Senate or whatever that was. Okay? Thanks a lot.